So, question of the day, what do you consider essential when it comes to an expansion? Now, hear me say that. I mean essential as in something you cannot play the game without. Like, it's basically changes the game so much for the better that you will never, ever play the game without it. Now, a few years ago, we did a video review of Sagrada, the very first version. It was one of my earliest reviews I ever did, and big fan. Obviously love Sagrada. It's a fantastic game. And since then, we've done 3 more videos, one for the 5 and 6 player expansion, one for Sagrada Passion of the Great Facades, and now also Sagrada versus Azul, which Sagrada took the win, I believe, in that game. And then last but not least, today we're talking about, well, not last, because there's actually one more Great Facade. We're talking about Sagrada, the Great Facade 2, the Life expansion. Now this one adds it adds a couple of new things. And so we're going to take a look at what it adds, if it's deemed essential, if it's something you should never play the game without, or if it's something you can just add in for spice right now.
Alright, so here's all the new components that come with Sagrada Life. In this expansion, you get some new apprentice boards, and we're going to talk about these symbols in a minute. You get a Masterwork board along with these Masterwork dice, apprentice cards, which are going to give you neat little bonuses during the games, as well as new Toil gold cards, and these are pretty difficult. They have a lot of things to them, as well as a couple tools. Now, the most important changes are the Masterworks and the Apprentice. We're going to talk about the Apprentices first. When you cover one of these Apprentice symbols, you can either take one of the top 2 of these cards showing, or the one from the discard pile. These are essentially just neat little perks that you'll either play. You can discard some, or you can play some. It says discard. Change a rare glass die in your window to any value, ignoring any value restrictions. So it's just neat little things. And I mean, there's just a ton of these different things. This one just gain 2 favor tokens. Swap any 2 dice in your window. So it's kind of like tools, but you have a better chance of getting them, and they're just yours, and they don't cost you any favor tokens to use them. So a lot of different options here with the different apprentices. Some are activate and some are discard. So the activate ones obviously you don't have to get rid of. But over here are the Masterwork board. Now the way this works is, on your turn, you can either trade out the color or the number for one of these dice. And the way these dice work, there's a whole list of Masterwork dice placement on where they can and can't go. It's a full-blown page of it. So it's a little bit tricky, but you have to be careful. But what it does is, also if you take these first ones, you'll gain some favor tokens. But these will point to 2 dice, or multiple dice, but these especially will point to 2 dice. If you point these 2 on your window somewhere, then this die here and this die must be the same color. Now when you take it, you can reorient it, you just can't roll it. So for instance, if you place this here and here, you've already, well, sorry, here and here, you've messed up, because this cannot obviously be both red or both green. So you have to be careful when you place this, but when you do it, it's worth 5 points at the end of the game if you do it. It's -2 if you don't do it. And there's a bunch of these different ones here, and you'll see the different orientations and things like that. There's a V-shaped one and all sorts of things like that. So different ways to, these are all 4 must be different colors, all 4 must be different numbers. But that's it. That's the essential differences. Oh, and the Toil differences. So you've got some Toil cards here that are a little bit harder to score. So some of values on the die are orthogonally adjacent from one of your Masterwork dice. So everything adjacent to that scores. This one is just carbon copies, 2 points for each die that matches the color and value of another one. This one is just make these kind of shapes right here. This one is the sum of values of completed row of the lowest total value. So it's kind of changes the way things play and what you need to shoot for, but it always adds spice and variety and replayability to a game that is already chock full of spice and variety and replayability through the base game, through the 6-player expansion, and now with Passion and Life. There's a whole lot of Sagrada to love.
So that's it. That is Sagrada, the Great Facades Life. Now, here's the thing. Couple of types of modules in this that you can add in, and that's what I like. I like when expansions just add multiple modules that you can play, pick or choose. Now this one, I will probably never play without the Apprentice expansion. I'll tell you that up front. Those Apprentice cards are so helpful and so nice to get that little added perk that I will never play without those Apprentice boards. Now the downside of that is, you can't play the apprentice cards without those apprentice boards. So I'm going to need some more apprentice boards. I mean, granted, there's enough to shuffle them up, mix them around, and play front and back of the two that you're given, but still, never going to play without the apprentice boards probably ever again, just because I like that expansion so much. Now, as far as the other ones with the orange dice, those are nice to add in quite often because it does add variety. I would say that this probably adds more variety without changing the game too terribly much. I mean, you're not really supremely affecting the rules overtly, even with the orange dice. It's nice having that little thing to, well, you can knock out some spaces that you're worried about having to fill. You can put it here, and then boom, these and these now have to be green or whatever. I like those orange die. I think they do some really cool things, and you can score some really nice points from them. And plus, if you're playing with the Apprentice combo of doing some of the cards that combo nicely with the Apprentice and the Masterworks, it's really worth doing. So, of the two of the new modules, though, I'm always going to play with the Apprentice. I'm sometimes going to play with the Masterworks, just so we're clear on what's most important in this expansion. Now, as far as the new Toil cards, I really like the challenge that they add for the public objectives. They are very hard to score, though. Some of them, I should say. The one with alternating, it's either, you can do like red, blue, or 1-3, 1-3. That's a really difficult one, but it changes how you have to think about this game of Sagrada. Because not only are you trying to play with the board you're given, and then also meet the parameters of something a lot more, I guess, stringent or strict than just, different colored dice in this row. So it's nice to have that variety and trade-off in those new Toil public objective cards. So if I had to rank what comes in this expansion, I would say first and foremost the Apprentice, boom, number 1. Number 2 is the Masterworks, that's really nice. And number 3, those new objective cards. In that order, this is why you should get the game. If you're a fan of Sagrada, this is a no-brainer. You're going to want this, and I'm telling you, this makes it a must-play just for the Apprentice cards. Like, you will always want to play with these Apprentice cards. If there was a way to retcon Apprentice cards back into older windows, I'd be all for that too, and probably someone done that. But that being said, this is a no-brainer. Go pick this up if you're a fan of Sagrada. It changes the game just enough to where it adds so much little things that make it so much more just varied and a lot more choices, and those Apprentice cards are just a nice little perk to get every once in a while. So I'm Brian Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, etc. at Dice Tower Brian. Until next time, we'll see you.